The German Defense Ministry says weapons have been stolen from one of its facilities and a tank was broken into. Straight over now to Peter Oliver, standing by live for us right now for the program. Peter, can you bring us up to speed? What else has the German military revealed about this incident?
Well, it's fair to say this has been a calamitous few weeks for the German Defense Ministry and for the Bundeswehr as a whole. This latest revelation that's come out, it was told to the press this week that back in February, a tank was broken into as it was stationed in Munster, and from there, 2 assault rifles, 1 pistol, 1 flare gun, 2 magazines without ammunition, 2 radio devices, and 1 set of binoculars were taken. Well, this is the latest scandal, as I say. I think the Defence Ministry might have said, well, there's so much else going on, we might as well put this news out, considering it happened back in February. That's because the German Defence Ministry and the Bundeswehr are wrapped up in one of their biggest scandals to date at the moment. This revolves around the German soldier, the senior lieutenant Franco Albrecht, who was arrested after it was claimed he disguised himself as a refugee. In fact, came to live here in a refugee centre in the Bavarian town I'm in, passing himself off as that with the intention of carrying out a terrorist attack and laying the blame for that at the door of those who've come to the country seeking asylum. Also, the German Bundeswehr has revealed that they're investigating almost 300, I think actually over 300 cases of far-right extremism within the ranks. Now, what this has led to is the German Defence Minister Ursula von der Leyen saying that there needs to be massive reform within the German military.
I will be completely clear. We need a broad process of reforms in the German army, which we should pass together, from recruits to generals, from assistants to the minister.
Britain's National Health Service says 16 regional health authorities have been hit by a massive cyber attack from persons unknown demanding money. The ransomware attack also affected computer systems in some doctors' surgeries, which had to turn patients away and cancel appointments as software crashed. However, it appears the attack was a general one and did not target health services in particular. At the same time, similar attacks have been crippling businesses in Spain. Attacks there have targeted telecoms giant Telefonica, banks, retailers, energy and transport firms, again using ransomware to demand money. Several companies have taken preemptive measures to prevent any hack into their systems by the variant of the WannaCry virus, which encrypts vital data, making it unreadable. Staff at Iberdrola, Gas Natural and Vodafone were told to switch off machines and cut internet access. With cyber hacking on the rise, many companies and organizations are reinvestigating their systems for weaknesses.
President Trump's long-awaited executive order on federal cybersecurity is finally here, and it's mostly asking other agencies for more information. The executive order holds agency heads responsible for managing the cyber risks of their department. It gives them 3 months to put together reports on the cybersecurity risks their departments face. One security expert told ZDNet that given that outdated tech is widely in use across the federal government, those reports would probably be a picture of a guy with his head on fire and 600 pages of screaming. The order does have some concrete effects. It mandates all federal agencies use the cybersecurity standards established by the National Institute of Standards and Technology.
Homeland Security officials briefed the airlines today on a proposal to expand the ban on laptops to include more foreign flights coming to the U.S. CBS News was first to report on the plan. Here's transportation correspondent Chris Van Cleve.
The proposed ban is based on growing concern about an explosive getting past airport scanners. The ban, already in place at 10 airports in the Middle East and Africa, prohibits electronics larger than a cell phone in the passenger cabin. If expanded, it could potentially impact all of the 60 European airports with direct flights to the U.S.
The bottom line is keeping terrorists with explosives off planes.
John Pistol is the president of Anderson University and the former TSA administrator.
Just from London Heathrow Airport, there's about 110 flights a day that fly to the U.S. It presents a challenge. How do you do that in a way that is efficient and effective?
An airline insider says it will be a logistical mess, likely to require secondary screenings of passengers and longer wait times.
The question is, how good is the intelligence? I don't have the specifics on this one other than to say, based on my experience, 31 years, with a top secret security clearance, that it must be pretty good in order to justify these measures.
Top European Union officials are demanding urgent meetings with the U.S. to discuss the looming ban. Anthony, back here at home, deliberations are ongoing, but a decision could come any day.
President Trump explaining why he fired James Comey.
Contradicting White House officials from the vice president on down, President Trump today said that he decided on his own to fire James Comey.
He's a showboat. He's a grandstander. The FBI has been in turmoil.
The president said he decided to fire Comey well before the deputy attorney general weighed in.
He made a recommendation, but regardless of recommendation, I was going to fire Comey, knowing there was no good time to do it. And in fact, when I decided to just do it, I said to myself, I said, this Russia thing with Trump and Russia is a made-up story.
In his letter firing Comey, the president claimed the FBI director had told him he was not under investigation 3 separate times, including during a dinner at the White House, a dinner he said he believes Comey requested.
He wanted to stay on as the FBI head, and I said, I'll, consider, we'll see what happens, but we had a very nice dinner.
The president said Comey also assured him he was not under investigation in 2 separate phone calls.
I said, if it's possible, would you let me know, am I under investigation? He said, you are not under investigation. I know that I'm not under investigation, me personally. I'm not talking about campaigns. I'm not talking about anything else. I'm not under investigation.
The president's words tonight that he decided on his own to fire Comey stand in stark contrast to what top White House officials, from the press secretary to the vice president, have been saying for days, that the president's decision to fire Comey was triggered by the recommendation of Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein.
He provided strong leadership to act on the recommendation of the Deputy Attorney General.
A primetime Israeli news show has been shut down by the country's parliament with an hour's notice, sparking some strong emotions from the channel's staff.
יכול להיות שזה גם במהדורה האחרונה הזו, מבחינה זו הסיום של התוכנית לא רלוונטי. אני כן רוצה להודות לכל האנשים שעבדו פה במשך השנים. מאוד קשה לכולנו. אמרתי שאני לא אבכה, ואני לא מצליחה.
A glance at the news had been the nation's longest-running news programme, on air since 1968. Local journalists have dubbed the closure a disgrace. Benjamin Netanyahu insists he had nothing to do with the programme's closure. His office also released a statement saying that he did not support the move and it was not done with his knowledge. He called the manner in which the show was closed disrespectful and dishonourable. However, many of his critics accuse him of simply trying to increase control over news sources. Just some days ago, echoing remarks by Donald Trump, Netanyahu accused Western mainstream outlets of creating fake news.
Ever wonder what fake news is?
I'm not going to give you a question. You are fake news.
Headlines in CNN, Al Jazeera, and The Guardian.
Very fake news.
This is a complete distortion of the truth.
The level of dishonesty is out of control.
The parallels in Netanyahu and Trump's approach come ahead of the US president's visit to Israel later this month.
Tanks, missile systems, assault helicopters. Turkey's defense industry has made its debut. With the aim of becoming one of the top 10 countries in defense technologies and production, Turkey wants to increase its arms exports. With a $6 billion annual turnover and $1.7 billion in exports, Turkey has expanded its domestic defense industry from 24% 15 years ago to 60% now. Turkey has been fighting the outlawed Kurdistan Workers' Party, or PKK, for more than 30 years. And now, at its doorstep, ISIL has become another challenge. Last year, the country was targeted 16 times by suicide bombers. 10 of those attacks were perpetrated by ISIL, and the rest by the PKK. The Stockholm International Peace Research Institute says total global military spending reached $1.6 trillion last year. This accounts for 2.2% of the world's GDP.
Victory Day military games in Serbia. Aware of the times, the country on the crossroads of the Balkans wants to send a clear message to its friends and enemies alike. It has an army perfectly capable of tackling today's terrorist threats. But Serbia also wants to project another message, that it has its own arms industry that is growing stronger. Former Yugoslavia relied on its excellent relations with the developing countries to secure weapons sales. Traditional buyers, served by 189 companies licensed for arms exports, keep demand lively, higher than Serbia's ability to produce. Factories bombed by NATO in the 1999 war were patched up with government help. With great effort, often in makeshift conditions, the recovery has been remarkable. Officials say that this year Serbian arms industry is expected to sign export contracts worth $800 million. But it can only produce weapons worth $500 million per year. So the government pledged to invest over $40 million to help the state-owned industries bridge the gap. If that measure indeed boosts productivity, Serbs hope to become able to achieve the magic figure of $1 billion per year in export sales.
In a new TV advertisement for the Marines, a fighter in full combat gear is seen moving through dark water carrying an M16 rifle. It's not until the Marine shouts out an order that it becomes clear that the Marine is a woman. The Marine Corps has struggled with the reputation of being the most unwelcoming to women of any military service, but they're working to change that image. By 2019, the Marine Corps wants at least 10% of its Marines to be women. Currently, it has the lowest percentage of women.
Open door right, open door right, open door right.
A day of police training, helping a group of ministers in Atlanta understand the challenges officers face on the job. The clergy members now launching a nationwide effort to bring the experience to other cities. Jonathan Seri has more. He is in Atlanta. Jonathan.
Yeah, the program, John, is called One Congregation, One Precinct, and for many of the cops and clergy who've gone through it, the experience has been eye-opening. Watch this. These are not police cadets.
Calm down.
They're ministers going through police training to bring their congregations a better understanding of life behind the badge.
I do want to help them to see the pressure that law enforcement are under when it comes to making split-second decisions.
You better stay there. I'll drop her, I swear to God. Calm down, buddy. You don't want to do this.
Reverend Markel Hutchins says going through a similar exercise made him realize protesting police-involved shootings was not reducing tensions between cops and communities.
No one benefits from screaming at each other. We only benefit when we have the courage to talk to each other. And a lot of the protests and the demonstrations, while passionate and understandable, have fallen short of actually being curative.
So, John, the idea behind this program is to get houses of worship to act as liaisons between police and the communities that they serve so that each can meet one another on a human level and resolve problems before they get out of hand.
Workers are threatening to blow up a factory in central France if their demands are not met. Let's go straight to RT correspondent Charlotte Dubinsky now joining us live from Paris. Good to see you, Charlotte. Can you tell us, though, why are these workers threatening to destroy their workplace?
Well, basically, they say that government-backed talks to try and save this plant in central France have completely failed. And they say that this now is their only option to bring to the attention of not just the French public, but the car makers that buy parts from this car, that their factory is going to close unless some orders are secured. Now, those car makers that they're trying to pressurize into solidifying sales to are Citroën, Peugeot and Renault. And basically what they say is because those companies won't say for certain whether they will continue to buy products and how much they'll buy from this car maker in central France, they can't find a buyer for this plant. So this plant is under threat of liquidation, and they only have about 2 weeks before it will close, with a loss of 279 jobs. Now, in protest of this, they said the only thing that they can do is to start cutting up the equipment, and that's what they did on Thursday, and they say that they will do that every day until that May 23rd deadline. pipeline. And they also say that they have booby-trapped the factory, threatening that they could even blow it up. That's how extreme they feel about the loss or the potential loss of this 279 jobs.
Estamos utilizando esa bomba Pupotok, como le llamamos. ¿Por qué? Porque si ellos nos reprimen a nosotros con bombas molotov, con perdigones y con todo, es la única manera de nosotros lanzarle a ellos.
Queremos una Venezuela donde todos podamos vivir en paz, donde cada quien se respete por lo que piensa y no por el capricho de un gobernante.
Y el castigo a cualquier funcionario que abuse de la...
Queremos libertad, queremos paz, queremos medicina, queremos que los niños no se mueran desnutridos.
Se ha capturado atacando bases militares.
Kenyans are facing rapidly rising costs of living, with inflation rates reaching a 5-year high. Prices are surging in part because of poor seasonal rains that have hit crops and livestock hard. The strain on agriculture has also led to outbreaks of violence and arson in parts of the country.
In this supermarket in Nairobi, the price of a loaf of bread has nearly doubled since last year. Other food staples, including sugar and corn flour, have been rationed, leaving customers both confused and helpless.
In the last month, it's gone up. It's shocking because I think just 2 days ago I bought 3 items. It was eggs, a few cakes, and I gave my 1,000 bob expecting change, and there I was being asked, you need to top up.
Right now I have a temporary job that pays 200 shillings. I have enough to buy corn flour, but I can't afford vegetables, so I have to cook plain porridge every day.
Year-on-year inflation in Kenya was at 11.48% in April, its highest rate in over 5 years. This is partly due to a recent drought, which has caused fruit production to drop sharply in recent months. But the government has also been blamed for mishandling the economy and raising taxes. This economist warns urgent action is needed to prevent a political crisis.
You can correlate the price of food with a revolution, and there's always an uptick in revolutionary type activity. So it's a dangerous place for the incumbent government to be in, facing an election in August with food prices still not tamed and still climbing.
The stakes are high for Kenya's government, with just 3 months until the next presidential election. President Uhuru Kenyatta is seeking a second term, but the current food crisis could hurt his chances of remaining in power.
On the surface, mining for minerals in South Kivu could easily be mistaken for almost serene. But the truth is, it's linked to the worst conflict since World War II. Since the 1990s, fighting in the Democratic Republic of Congo has killed more than 5 million people. The DRC is regarded as one of the most mineral-rich countries in the world, and the U.S. has legislation that requires companies listed on the U.S. stock exchange to report whether they use conflict minerals. But some critics want to repeal the law, saying it fundamentally misunderstands the relationship between minerals and conflict. And some reports suggest it has set off a chain of events propelling millions into poverty. Some miners agree.
I can't support the family like I need to because it's $2 at the end of everything. That's only enough for food.
In the past, we used to work freely. You can dig your stones, buy them, or sell them to anyone you want. As long as you had the proper documents from the mining ministry, you are free working properly. There were no limits.
But the lack of limits was the very thing that armed groups preyed upon. Others prefer that changes.
We are now working in the proper way, because there's no one who is forcing you to work. There are no guns and there are no weapons surrounding you. So we are working freely. To tell the truth, we work in good conditions.
There's a wide spectrum of potential solutions to ending the use of conflict minerals. But many activists argue it's up to the countries fueling the demand to help find a way to end the killing.
New cases of hepatitis C rose nearly 300% from 2010 to 2015, despite the availability of cures for the liver disease, fueled by a spike in the use of heroin and other injection drugs. In 2015, the national reported rate of hepatitis C was 0.8 per 100,000 persons, with nearly 34,000 new infections, according to the report by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Access to clean syringes and a limit on Medicaid barriers to curative treatments for hepatitis C can reduce rates of death from the disease and transmission of the virus to others, the CDC said. New treatments for hepatitis C with a cure rate of over 95% from drug makers have the ability to virtually wipe out the disease, which can lead to cirrhosis, cancer, the need for a liver transplant, or death.
We all remember Chernobyl, that horrid nuclear disaster that's largely responsible for turning the world away from what may be our last and best hope for saving ourselves from climate change. Well, it's about to happen again, and that's awful for like a million reasons, most of them pretty obvious. Earlier this week, staff at the Hanford site, a nuclear waste storage facility, were alerted to a possible emergency and ordered to take cover. The issue was caused by a tunnel collapse leading to a plant that processes waste plutonium from reactors. The Hanford site also doesn't have the best safety track record. The former governor of Washington state, where the facility is located, once called it an underground Chernobyl waiting to happen, and it has often been called one of the most dangerous places in the U.S.
100 homes reportedly have been evacuated in Beach City, Texas, which is east of Houston, after lightning struck crude oil tankers at a plant and triggered a fire. The Chambers County Sheriff's Office said homes within a half-mile radius of the fire have been evacuated as a precaution. A local news station reported that the tankers were hit by lightning as storms passed through Houston and other coastal communities early Friday. Firefighters were also setting up sensors to test the air quality as a precaution.
595 Americans have died in floodwater since 2011. A few fell into rivers or drowned while fishing on flooded waterways. And some children died playing too close to high water. But 61% of victims die in vehicles, often after driving around barriers or ignoring signs warning them to turn back. Texas has had more flood-related deaths than any other state since 2011. When torrential rains in late April led to flooding across Missouri, 5 people died driving onto flooded roads. The death toll would have been worse if not for hundreds of water rescues. Although warning signs are becoming more sophisticated and barriers more secure, experts agree that when it comes to preventing flooding deaths while driving, common sense must prevail.